Hey there, cartoonists and cartoon lovers. Welcome to the new episode of the Cartoon Pad. I'm Bob Eckstein here with my co-host Michael Shaw and
Hey, Bob.
our show captain Marty. Every 2 weeks we'll be talking shop about cartooning and discuss how the sausage is made. And this week we have a really special guest who's joining us right from the start go. And so I'm going to ask both Michael and our guests how their week has been going.
My week's been going fine, but it's about to get a lot better because of whom we're about to speak to.
Yeah, let's introduce our guest. He has created over 30,000 cartoons, some of them not about frogs and snails. He is responsible for some of the most iconic gag cartoons in the world, like the cow jumping over the moon and the caption being, "Son, your mother was a remarkable woman." And he's also responsible for the famous Frog Leg cartoons. He has been appearing in the New Yorker for over 52 years. Welcome to the Cartoon Pad, the world's greatest living cartoonist, Sam Gross.
Yes, you've got to stand corrected. It's 32,500 games I have in my folder now.
Okay, we'll have to change that in edit. Sam, the first question will be, do I need to reel back that intro at all? Was it too much over the top?
I have to speak slower.
Okay.
So, Sam, was the 2,500 the ones you drew this week?
25. Now, this week I think I did 14.
14. Well, you're 14 ahead of me.
And what I do in certain cases is I go through my old books, I glean. They're in loose leaf books, 200 to each book. And I glean through these things. I'm up to 18,000 something over there right now. Heading for 32. And what I do, I glean, I throw out a lot of stuff that is not funny anymore, stuff that is obsolete, and even stuff that occasionally, and I'm sure it's happened with you also, you look at a drawing of yours and you don't get it.
I've got a couple like that right now.
And so I throw them out. If drawings that are funny and in bad taste, I keep again. I'm noted for that. I got a reputation. I got to stick with it.
I've seen Sam's filing system in person, and I see how meticulous he is in recording all his cartoons. And Sam, you would have gotten that trait, I'm guessing, because you began actually as an accountant before you were a cartoonist, right?
Well, I was sort of an accountant. I was working with my father. Actually, I worked with a guy on 42nd Street also, Milton Bombach, CPA. And I hated it. But my father was an accountant, and he absolutely could not understand how anybody could survive doing cartoons. And I for a while there in the 60s, I would work taxis and then the rest of the year do cartoons.
Okay. And what part of the city were you living in?
And so, being a accountant with two people, it's like being a child molester. Nobody else gets. And I cleaned that up.
So is there something about being an accountant that just sends you over the edge at some point?
Yeah, what?
Is there something about being an accountant that just sends you over the edge?
No, not anymore. It used to be even, when cartoonists would get together after showing stuff at the New Yorker and we'd go out to a restaurant and it'd be 5, 6, 10, even more than that, 12. And the bill came, and of course, the rejoinder on that would be they would look at the bill and they'd say, "You're the accountant, you figure it out."
Well,
So,
Sam, I have to tell you, I owe you $12.50 from the Pergola d'Artiste lunch I had with you, because I had the osso buco
uh,
plus the creme brulee. So I'm gonna get that in the mail to you. Trust me, it's showing up.
okay, good.
Okay. I feel better now. I had to get that off my chest.
It'll be the nicest thing I receive in the mail lately. So I get either bills or appeals for charity appeals. So
Sam, can you remember when you started cartooning? We were talking about the other things you did for a living, but when did you
the,
get
fir-
your first interest?
the first cartoon I ever saw was to Saturday Review. And it was in 1953. I was still in college. And it involved an interrogation of this guy who was very scholarly looking, and the police are questioning him, interrogating. And the caption was, "It all started when I found out that my 5 better key fitted the bank vault." That was my first cartoon. Then I went into the army.
Because of that cartoon?
And then I went into the army. And I was drawing cartoons. And then I decided to submit to that. The headquarters area command, Hack Post actually was the newspaper. And they accepted all my stuff. And every week I would go in to Mannheim, we were stationed near Heidelberg, and drop off the cartoon. And that meant getting out of parade duty, which was very important to me. I hated parade duty, as everybody did it also. And then I got a call, still in the army, from a publisher that in Frankfurt who liked the cartoons and wanted to do a book of them. So we did a book of them. And the drawings are atrocious, but some of the gags are pretty damn good. I've developed the drawing considerably since then. But the book was the cartoons for the GI, and since this was the publisher was a publisher of newspapers, magazines, etc. The royalty checks came in monthly, so that was I was making at a point I was making more than a major in the army. My captain hated my guts, and then I came out of the army, and I was doing cartoons, by the way, in the 60s. I got married in 59. And I was doing cartoons in the 60s, and of course getting rejected most of the time. And we decided, for whatever reason, that I'm too sophisticated for the markets here. So we would go off to Europe and be sophisticated there. And also my old publisher was in Europe. So we went, we upped and went. And my publisher and I got into a couple of projects. One of them was okay. The rest of them fell by the wayside. But what I learned, we were living in Germany. What I learned and what my wife learned was another thing. She wanted to write. She wanted to be a writer. And I was doing cartoons. I'd get up in the morning and I would do cartoons, put them in an envelope and mail them. The German postal service was really, really good, much better than the American. And I would get them back, and I would send them out again. Occasionally I'd make a sale. I made a sale to Bizarre. I made a sale to, or selling to Bizarre, which is a French magazine. I was selling to a magazine called Rire, which is laughter, and Fourir, of foolish laughter. And I realized that I could survive with the rejection. My wife, when she came over, she realized finally that she couldn't survive with the rejection. So,
Sam, I have a question. Those cartoons you were sending in, did they have captions or were they just captionless?
most of them were captionless, but they had caption. My wife spoke German, so she could translate that. And I figured they must, if I'm sending the gags out to a publication, whatever the publication, somebody there on staff speaks English. I don't worry about that. And so, this is how I started. Then I came back to the States and I got involved with tax season to make sure that I made at least $1. The first year, I still remember coming back because I made $985 and change. That was my first year in cartoons. And the rest of the money that came in was from accounting and my wife's income. She was working for the state of New York Department of Labor at the time. So, and also it was a hell of a lot cheaper to live in 1960, 61. So after that, after I came here back, I started naturally showing up at the big leagues, the New Yorker, Saturday Evening Post, Playboy, all the top magazines, Esquire, which was the top magazine in those days. And in the mid-60s, I was selling gags to the New Yorker who were signing them to Charles Adams. And Charlie, I really liked. I had a couple of encounters with him personally, and he was a delight. And a lot of my gags fit his type of humor. The other thing is, with Charlie, I wasn't quote unquote appalled that cartoonists bought gags until I felt that they shouldn't, that they should be writing gags also, but a lot of cartoonists were just incapable of it. George Price was having a show on Madison Avenue of his drawings at Barbara Nichols Gallery. And for some reason, he took a shine to my wife. And of course, my wife took a shine to him. So he was walking around with her, pointing to drawings, how he did this. And oh my God, I wish I could have the white out and obliterate that line over there, just awful. And I was I was walking behind them like a consort or something, and listening to them, expound on all this stuff. And this whole room was full of George Price's drawing. And he turned to my wife and said, I'm not into gags. I'm into furniture.
And plumbing too.
and Plummer. And I realized that there's another level, another facet of cartooning where, he's into furniture. And basically, especially with George Price, they would make up a stat in New York. And he would come in with a drawing, furniture or whatever. And they would make up two stats. And they'd send one to John Corcoran in California, and the other to Richard McAllister in Connecticut. It was like having the cartoon caption contest back there, only this time it involved two guys. And, I'm getting hunched over. But well, I realized, that here's Charlie. Charlie was into mood. He was into architecture also. Once I was working with him in New York, and he could point out to buildings and what stood before them and what stood even before them, or whether this building is any damn good, as a piece of architecture or something. So he was really into this stuff. He wasn't interested in gags, and you could see it in the drawings that he did. But then I got my first cartoon into the New Yorker, the first two cartoons actually, in 1969, and it was kind of a freak thing in a way. We used to eat lunch at a restaurant called the Lobster, and there was the big round table, which Dick Olden, Bob Minter, and myself were not allowed to sit at, because that was the top rated cartoonists, those in the contract. And Peter Porches, that was the fourth one. And one week, J.J. Sampé, French cartoonist, came through. He was on the way to Cape Canaveral to report on a rocket launch for a French magazine. And he didn't speak a lick of English. So James Garrity, who was cartoon editor at that time, they needed a translator, and Peter Porches spoke perfect French because he was born in Europe. And so we were invited over to the big table. And Peter was doing, and for some reason, I was sitting right left side of Garrity. And Peter Porches is translating stuff, including one of the things Garrity said, ask him what he does with his rejects. And then and Porges put in his zinger, he wants to know what rejects are.
Yeah, I would have said, I don't have any.
Yeah, well, and then we leaned over, we both had a couple of glasses of wine. And he said, I'm buying that one cartoon for blah, 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 that cartoon for Charles Adams. And had a couple more sips or drinks or whatever. And he says, I'm buying two of them. I'm going to buy two of them for Adams. And a little bit later, he says, how would you like to draw up one? And I says, I would really come back to the office and I'll give you the rub. And I went back to the office and I'll have you draw up the second one also. So I sort of have been very happy in starting my career with alcohol. If it wasn't for
I'm continuing my career with alcohol, so.
if it wasn't for alcohol, I'd be in accounting, I guess.
I have another question, Sam. Your earlier style feels like Charles Adams. Did he influence you artistically?
Well, yeah, I went through different styles. I went through a Steinberg style. I went through an Adams style. I think I maybe went into an Adams style, you know, inadvertently, or because I was selling a number of things. I was selling up until 1973, I believe, 73, 74, when they finally were buying regularly. I mean, they were buying sporadically before that.
Yeah, I was gonna say your style has always reminded me of Saul Steinberg,
Uh,
and because of the simplicity.
well, yeah, I go for the gag. I go for the idea, and if and I see guys, that they're doing a gag, and the gag is, let's say, it's in the bedroom, and there are two people in bed, and one is saying blah 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 whatever, and there's a night table, with a lamp, and you could see that that's doing it, and the way he does the lamp and the night table and the drawers, and you look at this stuff and say, who needs that? That takes away from the gag. And
Yeah, you don't need a wall. You don't even need the world. You've got the blank space and the characters interacting, and that's it.
yeah, I again, you're telling a gag, you're telling a stand up. It's like stand up, if stand up is a priest, a priest, a pastor, and a Jew, and a rabbi walk into a bar. And the rabbi is a Reformed rabbi, and the priest graduated from the seminary in Boston. Yeah, that's superfluous. Just that these three people walked into a bar. That's it, and then you go on from there. You don't go off on a tangent here and there, which unfortunately a lot of people do. I don't consider myself, and one of them, I think, one of the reasons is they're artists, they're drawers, and I don't consider myself a drawer. I consider myself a teller of gags, of humorous material, whatever you want to call it. But I'm definitely not an artist.
I disagree with you because I think your artwork is great. But you also mentioned that we're like stand-ups. The one thing we're not like stand-ups is we don't ever have an audience and that immediate feedback. I'm curious to know how you get your feedback to knowing when your work is working, when it isn't. I find that to be a very difficult thing being a cartoonist working in that vacuum.
I'm not working in that vacuum. I just don't give a crap. So I'm not working in the vacuum. For instance, the Frog Legs cartoon that appeared in National Lampoon in December of 1970. Now, I have no idea what I did to generate the response I've gotten from that one part cartoon. And I consider myself absolutely brilliant. And I should never try to duplicate it again, because probably if I tried that, I think I'd be institutionalized. It's something that you did, and you were off on this plane, this high plane, and you're not going to get up there too often. And just leave it alone up there and don't try to duplicate it. Because
Sam, I have a question. Did you submit that to the New Yorker first?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Okay.
But I don't remember. That's 50 years ago.
I don't think they would have taken it. So
I don't think so. I was doing a lot of work for Lampoon at that time. They just started out. I think they started out in '69.
Sam, you brought up some really good points. You make a great teacher of cartooning. But you only taught a short time. Why was it that you didn't teach longer than a year or so cartooning?
I was teaching a class at Pratt. They had a Manhattan Center at that time. I don't know if they still do. And what I did there was I had the director who brought me in wanted me to really shake up the place, which I did. And I would walk into the class, and there was like 36 people in the class. And I opened up the class by saying, look, this is a country with 250 million people, and 25 million of them can draw better than me. And everybody in this class of 36 can probably draw better than me. But my job, what we're going to do, is take your talent, which ends at the wrist, and attach it to some synapse, run it up your arm into your neck, through to your brain, and get you thinking, get you creating up there. The next week I come in, and there were 17 kids in the class. And a note from the director, saying, "What'd you do? What do what'd you do? For God's sake, you 19."
Oh, but one of them was Bob.
Huh?
But one of them was Bob.
Yeah. Well,
He wanted to learn.
I said, look, leave me alone. And unfortunately, the director, she did. That's what she told me to do anyway. And I had 17 kids in the class, and hopefully some of them would go out and use their brain and not their yeah, that's National Lampoon. But
I wanted to show you this, Sam. I picked up, this is my copy of,
Marty, you want to describe that? What you're holding up?
this is an album cover for That's Not Funny, That's Sick, which is a Lampoon record that also had the frog's legs on
I
the
like
cover.
that. Lithographs, t-shirts.
They put this on everything. I mean, this was everywhere.
Paid me for it, which was nice.
I heard you had to fight for that, Sam.
Fight for
Your
no,
rights.
what they want to do. If you read Drunk Stone, what you did.
Let's see.
They wanted to.
I might have.
They were trying to. At least Matty Simmons was trying to get me to sign something, and which would give them certain rights. I'm not sure.
You didn't agree, from what I understand.
No, I didn't agree, and Matty learned a couple of new curse words. I really gave it to him, and off in the corner was Julian Weber, who was the president of National Lampoon at that time, and a lawyer. And he turned to Matty and said, "I told you Gross wouldn't have to go for it."
Now, Sam, were you the cartoon editor at National Lampoon at that time, or you became the editor later?
Later.
And what was that like to be the editor? You now graduate to being a cartoon editor for two places. You were at National Lampoon and also at Parents Magazine. What was that like?
Smoke. I was cartoon editor for 3 months. Smoke.
A Smoke as well.
That was a cigar magazine. That was before. That was when people smoked. So the magazine was called Spark.
Yeah.
But
And then, and
I
actually, you were
know-
editor for many books too. For all these cartoon collections,
yeah,
you were the editor as well. For like Cats, Cats, Cats,
yeah,
Golf,
what-
Golf, Golf.
what you've taken over. God bless you.
And people have been telling me that I was trained by you, and that you kind of passed the torch to me, which I don't think the same people realize that you also took me under to become a cartoonist. I had no interest in being a cartoonist until you and I kind of met and talked, and you kind of talked me into doing that.
Yeah. I don't feel guilty about that.
I thought you maybe be, I guess it's your one career downfall.
Yes, Sam, you're responsible for Bob Eckstein, so you got to carry that guilt. I'm sorry.
No.
Well, Sam, we talked about you teaching, but do you remember where you had your first art classes? Would they go back to DeWitt Clinton High?
Cartoons, classes that I took.
Yeah, because you never spoke
Oh.
about where you got your initial.
One of the
classes.
things was when I was at City College downtown, which was a business college, they had art classes. They had club, color theory classes. Mr. Weinberg, Barbara Goddard taught at a number of classes, including fashion design, which I was in. In those days, there was fashion design in ads. Lord and Taylor, the people that did this stuff. Ed Fasino, who went into cartooning, damn cartoon. He did that also. That was amazing. And I was in fashion design. I think I was the only guy in fashion design. And some of those women were really, really good looking. And I went out with one of them, who actually, she was really good looking also. And, but she was a nut job. But so it was too much trouble going out with her. But I took every art class in that was offered, and then I dropped out of being an accounting major to being an advertising major, and I graduated as an advertising major because the only class, by the way, which had a profound effect on me, and the professor's name was John Kelly, was cost accounting. And I think everybody should take a course in one cost accounting. And the other is contracts, which some of the art schools have been doing. Because I came in as a speaker on one of them at SBA for a year. Shots on that. And cost accounting is what does things cost? And one of the things that you should be aware of what things cost is what you're doing and how you're doing it. And are you making enough money expending this effort? To give you an example of this, and this was a little bit later, I guess, I would do these pristine roughs called. They were actually finished, and I would do it over and over, and occasionally white something out. And I remember I was doing something with a locomotive, and again, I don't consider myself an artist. And I was getting into this locomotive, and it was spec. I was going to run it to the New Yorker, run it to Saturday Evening Post after that, Look magazine, whatever. And I asked, why am I doing this? I'm doing this for free. Let me sketch a locomotive. And that's the locomotive until I sell it. When I sell it, it becomes, and that's what I learned from cost accounting. And so let's not disparage accounting too much. And because I would see it, with people that brought, sent in stuff in National Lampoon, kids, young people. Because one of the things I did with National Lampoon as editor, cartoon editor, is I surrounded myself with people who I could give free rein to. Charlie Rodriguez, Gay Wilson, M.K. Brown, Bobby London, you name them. These were heavyweight. And each issue was it was a theme issue. And, excuse me, and I would, call up, or this was before computers even, I would call up and say, hey, the issue was on sports. And they would come in with stuff on sports and with funnies and spot drawings. And there were other people besides it. Sherry Flanagan, another one that comes to mind immediately. And they would come in, and she would do a Trots and Bonnie, Sherry, on sports or something. And Rodriguez would do whatever, something on special sports. And so they would, and Ratso, would give me free rein on this. And one day, M.K. Mary called me up and said, I had an awful time at the dentist. An awful time. I said, gee, I'm sorry to hear about that. He said, I can give you 6 pages. And so I said, well, let me check with Ratso. And Ratso got Mary on the phone. She had an awful time at the dentist and she can give me 6 pages. He says, well, let's cut it to 4 because I got, it filled up with the magazines. I got back there and says, give us 4 instead of 6. That's the extent. The only time I made a correction on Charlie Rodriguez was, I think we did a book on C1, anti-Semitism, or something similar to that. And he did this cartoon with the Protocol of the Elders of Zion. And he did it as a pocketbook. And I said, it's conceivable that it is a pocketbook. I says, let's make it real crazy. Let's do it as a pop-up book. And,
So you corrected him to make him crazier.
huh?
You corrected him to make him crazier.
Yeah.
That's doing something.
Which if you're familiar with Charlie Rodriguez's stuff.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, it's pretty far out
It was pretty far out to begin with. You sent him
Sam-
farther.
Sam, you knew Charlie pretty well. Can you share a story about Charlie?
Well, I can tell you, my daughter really loved him, and he was very, very, very small. And my daughter is 5'3", I think, was taller than him, and which she loved him for that. The other thing is she referred to him as Roddy Rodriguez. He should change his name. Every I don't know, we would go up to the Cape during the summer days, and I would hire a car, and we would stop at Mattapoisett. And one of the things Charlie didn't do, he was a good Catholic, and he didn't do too many anti-Catholic gags. And one day we were up there and we were walking around Mattapoisett, Charlie and I, which is where he lived. And we passed by the library blah, 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 and the Congregational Church here, and the Methodist Church here. And over here is the Catholic Church. This looked like a Quonset hut. This is an old English town, and this is the Catholic church here. And it looked like there was a Quonset hut. It looked like you brought your car in there for repairs. And it said, and this is the Catholic Church, the only true church. And he was a fantastic cartoonist, and he's been dead since 2004.
I would have never taken him for a devout Catholic from his cartoons.
Well, for some reason, somebody was going to be doing a book on Jesus, cartoon book on Jesus, and they came to Gay and Wilson. Gay and Wilson said, "I have never done a Jesus cartoon," which everybody's got their limits except me.
Oh, I got a Jesus cartoon in one of Bob's books.
What?
In one of Bob's books, I have a Jesus cartoon, and it's Jesus handing out the loaves and fishes, and someone comes up to him and says, "The restaurant critic from the Times is here."
You left out.
The critic from the New York Times shows up to have some loaves and fishes with Jesus. You had to be there.
I produced 3 cartoon collection books, and 2 of them have Sam on the cover. Sam's on the first book, Sam's on the last book. And when we went into meetings with the publisher to decide what image to use, we had a lot of people we wanted to use. I wish we could have more than one cover, but it always came down to Sam's cartoons having a certain feel to them that were very welcoming. That while they might be, the joke might be hard hitting, and the line might be cutting, there was a charm, and there was a real sweetness always to the artwork.
Well, the one for relationships, for instance, it's so apparent what's happening there. It's a woman kicking this poor slob off the cliff. It's there. You can back off and you can see, what's going on.
Yeah, you're telling the story in a moment. The name of that book, so people could find it, is called All's Fair in Love and War. And in that particular book, the star of the book actually is Michael, who's got the most cartoons enclosed in that volume. You really hit it out of the park when it came to that subject of relationships and marriage. And
I am an expert.
No, but you did a really wonderful job. And having
Well,
Sam
thanks,
on the
Bob.
cover,
Yes.
I have a couple of my favorite cartoonists showcased. Sam, who are some of your other close friends who are New Yorker cartoonists?
What?
I said, who are some of your closest New Yorker cartoonist friends?
One of them is Adams. Basically, people that really Steinberg. Jim Garrity was cartoon editor from 1938 till 73 when Lee Lorenz took over. Now, Garrity was not an artist, not a cartoonist. He was a gag man. He was writing for Bob Hope also. And he came in, and then like in 1941, Steinberg appeared at his door, and just some marvelous things came out of that he could see. And Steinberg would come in with this stuff, and like the parade, he came in with a roll of paper, and he just unrolled it. It was this parade there, which they ran, and Steinberg, I think, is the only cartoonist / artist that has made it to Madison Avenue, as as a collectible, as a collectible artist, artwork. And he's up there with Motherwell. He's up there with oh God, pretty much any artist that's hot nowadays. David,
Sam, you know the difference between you and Steinberg? You're funnier.
what?
You're funnier.
Of course, I'm funny.
Steinberg was not a funny cartoonist. I mean,
No, he didn't draw funny.
The only one I remember is this guy drowning and he's asking for help in French, which I forgot what the French was. And the gag was, he's either French or quite a snob.
Yeah.
And I guess the think one, but he didn't have what I would call the killer humor instinct that you have.
He dazzled, actually. But people like Star shows and George Price had shows in Madison, but it didn't click. Steig also went off. I think he had this crazy contract with Nicholson Files, and also he had a contract with Chemical Bank. And for some reason, he got into an altercation with one or both of the clients. She could be very touchy. He would freak out if he appeared in the back of the magazine. He didn't like being in the back.
Oh my.
And so he went into children's books. And who's back there? He went into children's books. And I think the first one was Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. And he won a Caldecott for that. And he pushed a lot of these children's book illustrators out of shape for that. And so he was, he's still one of my favorite cartoonists.
Yeah, he did. Well, I guess everyone knows he did Shrek.
Yeah, well, because he did things that they weren't exactly gags, but they were more emotion, and he did these things beautifully, and he did his children's books fantastically. What he had to do there is retrain himself, because what he did with his illustrations or cartoons for the New Yorker is he would sit down with a blank piece of paper and a pen and just do it. But if you do children's books, you can't you can't make little Andy different on page 2. And so he trained himself to be able to come out into children's books.
He had an extreme shift in style too at one point.
Oh, well, yeah. It was, back in the 30s and 40s. He had a style that looked a little bit like Sid Haas.
Yes.
Sam, did you go?
That was a style thing then for a number of cartoonists.
Sam, did you go to the retrospect that they had of his show in Manhattan? I think you and me went together.
Where?
His retrospect, I think it was at the Museum of Metropolitan something, City of New York, maybe. It was a whole exhibit of his work, and it had his workspace as well.
Which
William Steig.
See, I don't remember.
It was a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember. But I do remember the city schools. We think of the city of New York. Yeah. Am I going to be bleeped during this show? Or do
No, you're not going to be bleeped. You're good to go.
Huh?
You're good to go.
It depends on what you say.
Well, well,
Bob's got an audience in mind.
well, all right, well,
Go ahead, go for it.
Peter Porches, I spoke with a heavy accent, so forget preface that with that. But we're in the main hall at the Museum of the City of New York, and Lee Lorenz was still cartoon editor at that time, and having no intention of resigning. And we were at the bottom of the stairs. Peter, myself, and the curator of prints at the museum, who lives right here in the neighborhood. And all of a sudden, Tina Brown makes a great entrance. She had started as editor, and she comes basically almost like cakewalking down this curved stairway, and Mancock is on her arm. So they're both sort of like cakewalking down there. And Peter looks up at them, and in a rather loud voice, he says, "Lee Lorenz is fucked."
We can leave that in, no problem. Don't worry.
Sam, you've seen a lot of changes in gag cartooning.
Fucked is kind of clean.
But tell us, are we getting any better? What would you like to say about all the changes you've seen in gag cartooning over the course of 50, 60 years?
One of them, it's different. But first of all, with the New Yorker, I believe, at one point, or actually 2 points, 3 points, whatever, in the 40s, this was before computers, etc. Somebody would come in with a cartoon, finished, and they would take 2, 3 stats in this cartoon, and then they would paste it up and paste the article around it. First, they would take the cartoon to see what it looked like, how best it looked. And let's say they took the large, middle, small. Let's say they took the middle. They would put that in and then set type around it. And at the end of the article, they would have a space because the cartoon came first. And this is where they put the news breakers, those little blurbs, and with a wise ass saying. And now we are relegated to 2 panels, no matter what. And one occasion with Ross Chairs, who I'm very friendly with, and and she draws with I don't know, a -6 rapidograph or something. It's very, and she was allotted this particular space. And I told her, I said, Ross, you came that cartoon he goes, it looked like Trek. And people asked, how could you say that? And I said, well, we're friendly, first of all, and 2, it was true. But it's going to be different. Some of it may be different now, I don't know. But people are posting cartoons up on the internet, of which I don't, by the way. I believe in being paid obscenely for everything. People, I don't know how they're making money from this stuff. I'm in the process of setting something up with one of my executors, because I set up a will which is going to process all of this stuff. I'll be in charge of this stuff, and we're working on how to do this, whether everything will be watermarked or whatnot. But it's going to be different, just like after this epidemic is over with. There are people they put out a magazine at the New Yorker, and they went from 21 stories down to 10 stories before that. Emma is working out of the Hamptons. Colin is probably working out of Brooklyn. Everybody else lives in Brooklyn. Stanley Ledbetter is working out. He's a writer there. Is working out of Brooklyn. I know that. And do you think? And on the 35th floor, they used to. I'm sure they don't right now. They dispense with this cafeteria. They've got 14 people on the Walker floor, and God knows what you have on the other floor. And it's the same thing with the New York Times. Like George Booth's daughter works as art trafficker there, and she's working at the house. She hasn't been in at the magazine for November of last year. She used to go in at least once a week. I know that, but it's going to be different. And
Well, Sam, in the early days of the New Yorker, Harold Ross used to go out and say, "Where the hell is everybody?"
okay, cool.
When Harold Ross was,
Oh,
when he first started, he'd go out and wonder where everybody went, but they were all out at the speakeasy. So
yeah. He was in charge of the magazine. He was head of the magazine until 1951. And just to give you an idea how crazy and cruel this thing is, Al Kaufman, who was basically a Saturday Evening Post editor, and a damn good artist. Not very funny, but a drawer, but a good artist. Got his first cartoon into the New Yorker, and I still remember it. The guy is sliding into second base, and all you have all this dirt flying around, and the caption, the umpire's safe, I think. That was, and when he died, Sean came in. William Sean, who had been his assistant editor, and he showed up in next week or so. And Lee Lorenz at that time was the cartoon editor. And Al shows up, and Lee says to him, he says, when Ross died, you died. He never even showed up anymore. Kind of stupid. But that's part and parcel of this business. Where, I was dealing with a guy named John O'Connor at Harvard Business Review for 17 years. And the Harvard Business Review was put out by faculty. And when you have faculty, you have faculty wars. And somehow, as art director, he survived it for 17 years. And then he didn't. And I was submitting some stuff. And they were adding and subtracting. They put thought bubbles on top of it. And also they decided finally also to buy all rights. So of course I'm not going into there. So they dropped me. I dropped them.
yeah, they're not buying anything these days.
Well, I don't think there was any reason for it to be in. They also had a caption contest. And so the other, I never was in Playboy. And one of the reasons was they bought all rights. And
Sam, you were not in Playboy?
never, no.
It's funny because
I read the magazine, but not Playboy.
And you know what's funny is that you and me first met at a Playboy party.
Yes, good.
It was you, me, and Leo Cullum.
Yeah. Well,
Working the room.
I didn't go to Michelle Gurley's memorial service because I really never did any business. And all we went out to she asked for material, and I would tell her, I don't give to Playboy. So we really had a perfunctory relationship.
Oh,
And so in 1977, I was stuffing an envelope for Playboy. And I go, schmuck, what are you doing? I said, if they buy anything, they own it. I pulled the stuff out, ripped up the envelope, and never sold to Playboy. I sold to We magazine and I took a cut for ownership. They were paying 150. I said, pay me 100 and I own it. And I made more money owning it than the 150. And
right.
so
Yeah, I was at Playboy as a writer. I was ghostwriting Lil Annie Fanny. I said I was at Playboy as a ghost writer. I was ghostwriting Lil Annie Fanny for a short period of time. That's before I did cartooning. I didn't get into cartooning until you and me had lunch at Pagola's, and you kind of dared me to try my hand at it. But I was just a writer before that.
No, with Michelle's memorial service, I didn't go. Somebody asked me, why didn't you go?
Mm.
I really didn't. I didn't do any business with her. She loved you. She really loved you. And I felt so goddamn bad.
Yeah, but she died too young, that's for sure, too.
I guess I'm lovable, and I didn't know I was lovable. I guess.
You
Sam,
are lovable, Sam.
You're lovable. Sam, I have a couple of questions from your fans. So I just want to ask you just a couple of quick questions. If you could answer them or you could skip them if you want. One person's asking, do you have a favorite cartoon of yours that's never sold?
That never sold. I can't say that I do.
That's pretty good.
Yes, even some of the ones that I've sold, I'm not dead. Well, one thing with Leela Red's cartoon that he was editing, and I came in with a batch, and he was going through the batch, and he said, I've seen this one before. And I said, and you're going to see it again. I think very highly of it.
Until you buy it.
Huh? I don't think he bought it.
Sam, which cartoon was that? Was that the snowman inside the car?
Huh?
Was that cartoon the snowman inside the car?
No, that one he saw. That one he looked at. He's had for 5 times. I mean, it was a snowstorm, so I took advantage of it. I shoved it in. It is one of my favorite, but I bought it. They bought it.
Yeah, that cartoon's in my History of the Snowman book, and that's how you and me reconnected after running into each other at the Playboy party. I wanted you to be in my first book, and so I chose a couple of your cartoons, and that was one of them.
When you were doing that, Lil Annie Fanny, was Harvey Kurtzman alive?
No, it was written by 2 other guys who had been brought in, and they didn't totally understand the cartoon, which is that that cartoon was actually quite political in nature, and there was a lot going on behind the scenes. There was all these like second meanings behind everything that on the surface you wouldn't notice. And so they brought in people after Harvey who didn't quite get that. And I tried my hand at it, but I had moved on and did other things. It was just a fleeting moment. But Michelle was very nice. And it was always fun to go to the Playboy headquarters. The women were beautiful and everyone was sort of inappropriately dressed. kind of stop the show there. Sam, another question for you. So I know how you work because I seen you work, but can you tell others how you kind of come up with your gag ideas, how you would come up with the ideas for your cartoons?
Somebody asked me about that, and it's very difficult. But and what I usually say is I use Higgins Gag Ink.
Gagging.
Yeah. I don't
Can
know.
you can you send me? You want to sell it? Hey Bob, we got to sell that as a product now.
I sit there and I doodle,
Group.
and something comes out. I may look at another cartoonist work, and some people turn me on, and I can get something from. Other people can't. I look at a bunch of French cartoonists, and I just do some stuff, and I don't know what I do, but I come up with cartoons.
I'm going to add that as an observer, one thing I see you do for ideas is you do seem to block out distractions well and get into a zone when you try to work. You make sure that you just focus on letting ideas come to you, and you find yourself like sort of almost an isolation booth.
Oh yeah, no. Even when I'm out in Fire Island, I have a little desk out there, and I bring my pen, and I just sit for a couple hours and zone out for a few hours, and come up with material, and also come up with a lot of paper. So, but how do you get to ideas? It's probably the most common question asked of any poor cartoonist. They have to figure this thing out. The Higgins Gagging thing, that was the New Yorker, not New Yorker, the Saturday Evening Post. And this young kid came in who was very, very brash. I think I was when I started myself, but this kid came in and he wanted to know the secret of cartooning. What, as if you use the right paintbrush and the right pencil, you will be able to survive it. If you lose the wrong one. And so he was asking people what they used, what paper they used, etc. And they came to John Elsick, and he asked him, he says, what kind of ink do you use? And John straight faced said, Higgins Gag Ink. And nobody.
Sam, did you get your pens that you've been waiting for? Yeah, this was supposed to be a big week for you, big delivery.
I have a number of different rapidograph pens, so I can bastardize and make a 2.5 and a 1.
Oh.
And I've got a bunch of pens here that I have to get cleaned. And
Okay, I want to get to the next question because the next person is going to ask you a question in person. We have a special guest for you. You might remember her.
All I see is MIGR.
Yeah, we have a new person joining the Zoom.
It's Mitzi Gaynor.
Here we go. Sam, your daughter, and you're on mute. So if you want to just unmute yourself.
Actually, there's no sound yet.
Unmuted.
Hi,
Hi, Dad.
how you doing? How did you know about this?
Bob told me.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. I've been having some little medical issues.
Yeah. Do you have a question?
So,
You're on the air, but we're going to cut that part out.
oh, okay. Let's talk about cartoonists, guys.
Okay. Okay, what? I'm just trying to
We
think.
actually brought you up already because we asked about Charlie Rodriguez.
Oh,
And I want to ask you if you can remember, what is your favorite moment in your dad's career?
God, there are so many. My favorite moment? It's hard to
Maybe
say.
one that stands out.
I really appreciated how surprisingly famous he was in France. That was a weird one for me. I started hanging out with the Charlie Hebdo guys and found that he was like this iconic figure to them. And hence, as Dad knows, he was over in 2014 and 2016 for two different events. And the standing ovation that you got in the library, wow. You know, in the center of Paris really floored me.
Well, Michelle, it's great to have you here. I wanted to ask your dad about some of his friends in cartooning, some of his buddies. I've been hearing from a couple of them myself lately, like Mort and stuff.
Oh, how's he doing?
He just had a birthday.
Yeah, I
and
know.
he went skiing. They took him skiing.
Oh, good God.
And he was telling me how everyone shares his birthday. There's a group of people who all share the same birthday. There's Mick Stevens.
Mick.
And then he has his friend Dick Hyman, who there's a name that you'll get you beat up in gym class. He's the jazz pianist. I like to say he went all in, going for that occupation with that name. He knows him, and he's like 94, I believe. And then there was some other jazz musicians that Mort knows that he's played with through the years.
Really?
Who all had a birthday a couple of days ago. And Mort himself is 90, and he went to Vail, Colorado to celebrate and go skiing.
I can't believe he's 90.
He's going to be on the podcast. We're going to bring him on when he slows down and stops globetrotting.
Yeah. Now, one thing I remember, speaking of fame, quote unquote, when Michelle and her friends were like 14, 15, of course, that's sort of the hostile period. And, somebody would call, she'd come up and say, oh, my dad, he's such a schmuck, he's such a putz. And friends at Steiner, which is where they went. Oh no, he's really funny. He's a George for National Lampoon. He's no putz. He's funny. She says, I couldn't get a word in edgewise against you. So thank God for National Lampoon.
Actually, I have a copy here I just found, the one with Brooke Shields on the cover holding something aflame.
Michelle, did you inherit any talent from your dad?
I hope so. Otherwise, I'm in deep shit.
She does some marvelous collages.
Yeah, I do collage. I do assemblage. This year, I've done a lot of maintenance thanks to the pandemic. I winterized their house by myself.
Yeah, I heard about that.
I don't know
project.
if that's creative, but
no, good job. You're doing a good thing. You're being a good daughter for them, taking care of that. What does your dad have in the way of work in France and the horizon? Is there some projects coming up?
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm working on an LLC, a limited liability company. Also, because France is very supportive of artists, and since I'm a resident there, I normally should be able to get government help to develop this small company, let's say. They're gonna normally they give you also trainings, like free trainings, through the French government.
No, I was asking also about your dad having a show there, or any books coming out.
Well, let's see. We just had that book come out from Germany, the Anti-Semitism for Dummies book. It's been a little bit difficult. We just actually learned that we're going back into confinement again in France. So it's been a little hard on the guys. It's kind of killed a lot of the gallery stuff for the moment, and but yeah, I'm really hoping to get the ball rolling, and to have him come over again if he's up to it. The last show he did was a mixed show. I think there were 19 cartoonists. He was the only foreigner. And the other guys, well, were famous there. I don't know if they're known here. Maybe Willem. Do you know who Willem is?
No, I don't.
He's Dutch. He's since about 1968, he's been cartooning in France, and he's a big Charlie Hebdo guy. But there's some really, really good artists over there that are somehow not known over here. They seem to know more us than we know them.
Cambon is one of them.
Cambon. Well, actually, speaking of Cambon, I happen to be wearing the shirt that Michael Gerber gave to my father as a present. We're working on this shirt.
Very tasteful.
Yes.
And
It's been baptized Dump Trump.
I understand you also have a tattoo to show us.
A tattoo? Yes, I'm getting a tattoo of the Dump Trump. No.
That looks, excuse me, it looks more like a Trump dump.
Well, see, basically, the French cartoonist who did it, who's, in that group of guys, it's Trump, and he's crapping out his own head.
Yes, hence the Trump dump.
Right. And we're still kind of working. I think Dad says it's too big. We're still working on sizing stuff. I think the toilet paper should not be pink. I think it should be either like gold or white.
Or you can lose it.
So this
What's
is
that?
just
You can lose the toilet paper.
You lose the toilet paper?
Sam wouldn't use toilet. Yeah, it's,
No.
He's
So this is going to be
Minimalist.
first going to a
Towels.
focus group.
a bidet.
A bidet. Oh.
Sam, do you have any questions for your daughter regarding your career in cartoons?
Uh-oh.
Wait, what was the question?
The question is can you think of anything to ask your daughter about your career while you were cartooning? Any questions you might have pertaining to cartoons that your daughter would have the answer to?
No.
Did Michelle ever help you with an idea? Did you ever show your cartoons to Michelle before you showed them to anyone else?
No. I have 3 gag of the 32,500. I have 3 gag for people. One of them was having a depression on the couch. And she said, there's some days I don't know how to get up and get dressed. And so I did a gag with a guy very depressed reading a book on how to get up and get dressed. Sold that to the New Yorker. She also came up with a gag.
Wait, I wasn't the one who came up with that. That was Marlene.
I said Marlene.
Oh.
Marlene. I said the second one was a woman begging and it was to sign my children never call. Yeah, I'm not too proud of that, but I sold that to Ladies on the Home Journal. And the other was I was at a party with this lady, Susie Burke, and she came up and she was talking about they had the Cabbage Patch dolls at that time, and she, I guess she was an F&A sports, and these kids were having fits because they were just a limited amount of Cabbage Patch dolls. And she went up to this woman, and said, "Why don't you do the best thing you can for the for your kid? Have a cabbage, screw you." Actually, she said, "Fuck you," and I put that into a cartoon and sold that naturally to Saturday Lampoon. My only 3 gigs that I didn't do myself.
People would want to ask Michelle, if your dad is always on, what's it like to live and grow up with Sam Gross?
Oh my God.
Did your dad bring you
it's
work
pretty
home?
intense. It's very intense. On the other hand, you're never bored. I was never ever not even half a second bored as a child. I got to go to some really cool places. I mean, like, galleries and the Salmagundi Club and it was pretty cool also because there were the other kids. So we kind of grew up together, the little offspring like Jessica Ziegler and, and Mart's daughter. And so it was like a little bit of a, and Beth Furman's daughter, technically not a cartoonist, but the
She worked
art
at,
kids kind of hung out.
she worked at
Also.
Lampoon, Beth.
Sorry?
I'm just explaining, Beth worked at Lampoon.
Oh, that's right. I think of her more as when I worked with her at where were we working together? At King Features.
She worked.
I had a little stint at King Features.
You had a little stint. What was that?
I worked at King Features for a few months when I was, I don't know, in my late teens, early 20s.
Let's
So,
see.
and actually Beth was there at that time. She was working at King Features at that time.
Yeah,
I actually was hoping that we can get Jessica Ziegler on the podcast one day to talk about her dad's work. Her dad was not only a great cartoonist, but also sort of a pioneer for a certain style that was representative for a few decades. Michael, would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, Jack brought the pun to the New Yorker level, and the
Sam-
toast and the toaster.
Yeah. Sam, what did you
Well-
think of Jack Ziegler's work? He's speechless.
Dad,
fine.
what do you think of Jack's work? Jack Ziegler.
I think Jack, but Bob Mankoff said Jack Ziegler can draw anything, and I think he can. Just looking at his work, he basically he puts a lot in, but it's good. It's not too much, and
Well, it's a certain style, like, also Mick Stevens and the younger cartoonists of the New Yorker are just sort of a whole different animal, aren't they?
I want to add, I spoke to Mick Stevens a couple of days ago on his birthday. I was just mentioning his birthday. He was 79.
God.
So he talked about the kids. The kids are,
some of the kids they don't have a clue to what's going on. And
oh, let's clarify. We're not talking about Mick Stevens
well,
as one of those kids.
okay. There's my generation, which is Naughty, George Booth, Ed
Ian.
Cohen. And then there's I guess Mick Stevens is I throw him into the other generation, which is him, David Cypress. I'm not sure about David Borchardt or one of those. And then there's, I guess, with that particular generation, they know what's going on. I'm going to put it that way. And then there are the kids. I can go up to one of them, young lady, I'm not going to mention her name. And selling cookies. And did you ever hear of Charles Adams? Oh yeah. That's the Adams family.
Oh, yeah. That was a shocker.
Yeah, mention Steinberg.
You mean the movie, The Addams Family?
Right. They don't know that he was a cartoonist and a guy. And no, they have no idea.
Yeah, I had when they were pushing one of the Addams Family things. I think it was the animation. It was a horror, feet or something. The slack there from merchandising, and the characters were derived from this wonderful, beautiful comic strip. You know, this is what this picture going on TV, and I roll my eyes. I go, oh my God! But I think humorists in general, cartoonists included, die very fast after they die, after they're dead. They're not too many. I can't think of too many people that have stayed around in you know, as a cultural phenomenon or whatever.
Well, we're not going to end on that note. I'm going to ask another question. Sam, Michelle, what's a favorite TV show that you both enjoy? Is there something? What makes you laugh? Share with us.
Well, we used to watch Bugs Bunny together, and we used to watch The Muppet Show together, and Bullwinkle.
Bullwinkle was a marvelous piece of work. It was done by this guy who produced it, who was sick and tired of looking at the crap that was on. And every Thursday, I think at 7:30, we would watch Bullwinkle. She was 3 years old, and she wasn't going to Boris Badenhop and you know, and Natasha and all the other stuff that and she loved it because it worked on her level, and it also worked on my level. So you know, of course, it was hilariously done, and there was no going down to somebody's level, kids level or stuff, which you see on television. I don't think there's too many of these cartoon shows anymore. I don't know why. But,
Michelle, I know.
Sorry,
Michelle,
Bob's
I
a big
know-
Mr. Peabody fan, aren't you, Bob?
Oh, Mr. Peabody.
I love Mr. Peabody. Sherman.
Yay! I like Michael.
My favorite is King Leonardo. I'll have to show that. King Leonardo. But Michelle, I know what your dad's favorite thing on TV now is the State Farm jingle.
The State Farm jingle. Uh-oh, he's making a face. I can tell you his most hated ad is the one for Cars for Kids.
Yeah, but ask your dad about
Shall we
State
sing it?
Farm.
Yeah, let's sing it and see if his head explodes.
1-800 Cars for Kids.
You have it, Dad?
KARS Cars for Kids.
I wonder if right mom would give a car to a kid like that.
That's
Sam,
the kids in the trunk.
Oh, yeah, the car is full of, like kids in the trunk.
Yeah.
Sam is always singing the State Farm song around me. Sam, the State Farm song. Dum 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 dum.
That's farmers.
Oh, farmers.
You mean, oh, we are farmers. Da, 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 da.
Like a good neighbor.
I consider that a gene, come up with he's a genius. Then there's Liberty, which is a
Oh, I hate them.
Liberty. It's funny. Insurance commercials are the most creative things on television now.
Absolutely.
If you look at they have like reinvented advertising.
They
Because
become the Madmen and Breaking Bad.
Yeah, I mean, and Affleck started it. Now we're off on a tangent.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
Affleck.
I can't keep Sam on any longer. You've been so generous with your time. We've imprisoned you for a good over an hour.
I didn't know that you went on so early, Dad. You said 7, Bob.
no, I said 6.
So I want to know, Michelle, you're in France now?
Right now, I'm actually in Fire Island.
Oh,
I have taken our beach shack and turned it into something that I managed to pass the winter in.
yeah. You look like you're in seclusion.
Well, I mean,
severe seclusion.
well, it is a little bit soon. It will be like, crazy and the way Fire Island people think of Fire Island. But right now it's still a little The Shining out here. It's pretty quiet during the winter. Most of us know each other. It's been more crowded this year. This is my first winter here, and again, I didn't go back because of the confinement, but since I happen to be a member also of the fire department here, it was a really good and
Wow.
interesting experience to be responding to calls this year.
There you go.
Well, Michelle,
So-
it's always good to see you.
And so nice to see you guys, Marty, Michael.
Nice to meet you.
I'm sorry, I thought that it was 7.
No. No, it's all good. I want to speak to your dad first. I want to thank Sam for today. I'm not going to say you influenced my work as much as you changed my whole life because of you, I got into
Yeah, blame it on me, right?
I got into books and bookstores because of the New Yorker, and I've carved out this whole thing about trying to stand up for books and bookstores. So you're responsible for that. Never mind cartooning. The cartooning is a small little thing.
Yeah.
And so it's great always to see you.
In closing, I want to say you'll never see me in the cartoon caption contest.
Oh yeah.
I
peeve.
personally, I have changed the caption here, changed it again. I really don't want, for instance, some dentist from Toledo to mess with my caption
How about your teeth?
writing. And I figured they should do it with the writers also. David Remnick, he ought to put out his last couple of sentences and run a contest to finish it off. Or if a dentist in Toledo, let's say, wins the contest, they should allow me. They should charter a plane actually for me to fly out to Toledo to pull a tooth. I should at least,
I thought you wanted a free cleaning.
yeah.
Oh God. And for the next podcast, American medical services versus French.
Michelle, I got to get you a can of oil. We've got to get a can of oil to your dad's chair.
Oh, is it squeaky?
A little bit.
Yeah, I
thought
have
those
to
were
get back in
walnuts.
there and do some more stuff. You know what would be an interesting podcast sometime if we could do it? I mean, again, right now I'm recuperating, but from the studio. You've been to the studio, and I think that's a fascinating place. Uh-oh.
That place needs a little straightening up. Yeah, since
It needs 2 paper bags, one just in case he ever breaks. The old Rodney Dangerfield joke.
Yeah.
It's a little messy, but I was there. There's so much stuff. And your
It's
dad,
not
I'm
that
sure.
messy. I mean, it's just got a lot of stuff in it.
You sure?
Yeah,
Well-
because if he wants, I'll mess it up for him. Would you like me to?
But
Would you
Yeah.
like me to make a mess in the studio?
it's pretty messy right now.
It's not. I mean, he's got
The
it.
only
He's
thing
got
I-
things done by year. He's got finishes together. And you've got all of those folders that you know about his cataloging the 32,500 and counting.
Yeah. He also
showed
has
you
so
his
many.
wisdom.
He has hundreds and hundreds of art books.
Also, and he has a couple of signed things from lots of different countries from different guys too.
On the other side of the park, my friend lives in an apartment on the Upper West Side that was where Babe Ruth lived. And
Ooh,
there's a plaque in front of the apartment that this is where Babe Ruth lived. We should have like a plaque where Sam has the studio. Have it like one day a museum. People could come in and look at the work.
well, Walensky, who was one of the artists who died in the Charlie Hebdo attacks, they actually took his entire studio and they kind of just put it into, it's now a piece for us to see. You see, like they took his exact studio the way it was.
Where?
It was in the You know the François Mitterrand, the big library in the 13th?
Yeah, yeah.
So it was in there.
It's a modern library, big modern building.
So yeah, no, I mean, again, like France is usually great for cartoonists. And if anybody wants to come over and visit when it's a thing, the guys are very friendly. There are a million shows to go to usually each week. I hope your liver can stand how much the French like to drink wine as they look at their art. So
Well, you're supposed to be getting an award.
what's that?
You're supposed
Oh,
to
that's
be
right.
getting-
And I'm because of the confinements, something has been thrown off. I'm kind of hoping Dad will be able to make it over. I put a book together in the old style, you know, with the pages and like articles and different stuff of as his work. And so they put me in what I guess it's called an order in French. And they're giving us a bronze medallion, I guess it would be called, for cartooning and the promotion of cartoons. But basically, like, you know, it's more him. I'm just kind of the legwork.
That's nice.
Yeah. He's a famous dude.
Well, I don't want to keep you forever, so I'm
Remember,
gonna say good night.
Well, over here in you know, The Shining, it's kind of nice to see other human beings. How's the world?
Yeah, remember.
It's not good.
No. Where are you, Michael?
I'm in Manitowoc, Wisconsin.
Oh, good God. Is it
I know.
cold?
It snowed yesterday, and then it warms up to about 40, and then it freezes. So there you go.
Do you know Pete Mueller?
Oh yeah, we were just talking about.
Oh,
Mr.
I love
P.S. Mueller.
Pete. Pete is the best. He's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't heard from him lately. I think he had a few issues back.
He did have a few issues, but he's
Yes.
one funny dude.
He's another guy that could just sit down and start drawing stuff.
No,
Yeah, well, Dick Olden. I mean, I still remember when my father and I and Dick shared a studio. You know, Dick did not have whiteout. He didn't even have an eraser. He just drew, and it was never wrong somehow. He's sort of a freak. In a good way. A good
Yes, I wish I was such a freak.
Pete Mueller. Pete was here to visit to New York, and Pete, myself, Felipe Galindo, and Nick Downs wound up at the museum, Metropolitan Museum, and they had a big Michelangelo show. No, Leonardo da Vinci show. Going through this thing, and they're doing dogs, horses, and all of them, you know, looking there. And he's doing cats, and he couldn't do a cat to save his ass. I do better cats than that, for Christ's sake. We all have a bête noire. Mine is one of mine, and there are more a lot. But one of mine is horses, and horses seem to be tough for a lot of people. But,
You know, a well-drawn horse doesn't look that good anyway. They're just weird.
When
So
people
that's
draw,
a lesson I learned from Sam through the years: is not to draw things accurately, but to draw funny. And I know that a lot of illustrations, I call them illustrations. A lot of the cartoons now are too illustrative.
Well, a lot of them seem to be done completely by the computer, and there's no longer any kind of an organic feeling of the thing.
yeah, there are no mistakes.
There's no personal human touch. It's too
That-
perfect.
Yeah, the line goes, maybe it wiggles a little bit, and then it goes again. They don't have that, and you can see it in some of the covers at the New Yorker. You know, you can see they were made by a computer.
What do you guys feel about the cartoonists who cartoon only with the computer and they're not using, you know, pens, pencils, paper?
I mean,
I-
if you get used to if you get used to the new technology tools and can still do your style, but now you have just a shortcut to make it more efficient. Like you can do more work in a there's something the new Apple styluses that have like the weighted like nib on it, and you can do different different brushes and stuff. Like some of the stuff looks great. I don't have it all, but there's people that can do it, and it looks like real medium. Like it looks like oil painting, or it looks like pen and ink, and they still are able to capture a style. I like
Mhm.
that. I don't like it when it's no style anymore and it just looks like nothing. So
Well,
I think Sam would say there's no original to sell.
Or too
that's
many,
true. That is very true. There is no original, which
Unless
I
you
think
want-
is
Yeah, unless you're a virtual Bitcoin
no,
gallery.
Oh God, Bitcoin. I never did understand that. Michael, explain.
I saw
I think
my,
Bitcoin is for people who don't understand it, so they can sell you one.
Exactly. It's sort of like that pyramid thing or
Yes.
Madoff.
Yes.
or NT. Is it the new thing where they're
Yes.
selling like gifts?
That tells you the end is near.
People are buying digital
Yes.
files of just like a repeatable silly thing, and they're like,
Yes.
I own
The Pop-Tart kitty.
Grumpy Cat GIF.
Okay.
And they're like, but what does that do? Do you get royalties? No, you do not.
Oh my.
I guess I'm old fashioned about this thing because I take, my originals are going for 3, 4, 5,000. The cartoon, the Frog's Leg worth for 20,000. Now, if I had
Yeah.
done this on the, on a computer, I'd have nothing. Again, what's the value of having something that's worthless?
When Sam, back in the magazine hard copy days, when they would buy a cartoon, like let's say Playboy was buying your cartoon, they're buying the rights, but if they buy the cartoon at a magazine, they're not physically buying your artwork also, are they?
At Playboy, they did up to a portion. When they were running the club, they would be hanging original cartoons,
Okay, so they did buy the illustrations.
and they would last a couple of weeks. Somebody would rip them off. So
They just got covered in sex over
Yeah.
there.
Covered in all kinds of. Let's not even talk about it.
Someone slipped on them on the floor.
They
They'd find them
Yeah,
at the
they
bottom
got
of the
slimed.
Oh, Marty,
No,
non-fungible
Andy Warhol-
fungible tokens,
That's what it is. It's a non-fungible token.
as opposed to the fungible tokens, which are much better.
I don't know.
They had Andy Warhol do a cover Playboy, and they paid him $11,000 for it.
Good for him.
And they got to keep the original?
And they wanted to keep the original. Yes, they felt that $11,000 covers the original also. He sued their ass off and got his artwork back. But it's I feel that in this business, we are pretty much wherever we're dealing with, we are underpaid from cost accounting. We are underpaid. For me, except for the New Yorker, and only because I have a contract and I'm not underpaid. But everywhere else, if I'm selling stuff, I'm underpaid. The book in Germany, I went for 35 euros on the cartoon, which one of them came from the Rejection Collection book, and the others are originals. And what I'm hopefully from this, since I own it, that there'll be reprints coming from this, that the book, which is now in German, will be in French, will be in English, will be in Italian. I will make more money. Or if it doesn't take off, it doesn't take off. But eventually, certain cartoons that pay a hell of a lot of money. The Frog's Leg's about over $100,000. Your mother is a remarkable woman. Comes Mother's Day, I'm making a chunk of money through the cartoon collection now. by the way. And a lot of that, I'm really pro cartoon collection because they're going to be looking after my rights, and they're going to come up with something that they'll that both they and me will make money. And again, it's I have to take a chance. If I'm selling something for $300, I'm losing money. I have to take a chance that this thing will be worth something to somebody, and they'll pay for it, and then somebody else will pay for it, somebody else, until I get or the tape dispenser gig. And these are three drawings that have I actually on all of those they were all New Yorker drawings, so I made money again on the New Yorker. But it's the only way you can exist in this business is because people want to take this thing and own it. And what the hell they're going to do with it, God knows, but they want to own it. And they want to own the original. Back in 1970, there's only 3 magazines that were buying first rights were Look, Saturday that's the Saturday Review, and National Lampoon. And with National Lampoon, it was such a rarity in those days. And it was with National Lampoon and Matty Simmons because of that, for 2 reasons. One with the rights, and 2, if anything happened that I was dissatisfied with, I could just run into his office and curse him out. Which if you can read that in the Drugstone Brilliant Dead book. If you
Yes.
And,
On a weekly basis, I understand. On a weekly basis, you went in there.
yeah, and that I think Ratso wrote about that, and but I own it. It was almost unheard of in those days, and you could see these guys could be going around for cartoon market, and there were so many markets. Some of these guys came back and did it on Thursday. On Wednesday, it became a ritual on Wednesday because Marion Nichols, who was cartoon editor at the Saturday Evening Post, and Saturday Evening Post was located in Philadelphia, and she would come up on the train on Wednesday, and she would hire a hotel room, and people would come in and show them cartoon. And they figured, while we're here, let's try True Magazine, let's try Argosy, until it became a ritual where these guys were coming in from the suburb, and they were making so much money at $75, $35, $40. Remember, this was in the 60s, and things were a hell of a lot cheaper than they are now. So the only way out now is the only way you have a chance. The only, however small or big or whatever, is for you to own it, own the originals, own the rights, own it.
Yep. I remember a couple years ago, you let me in your studio and you gave me a tour, and I got to see everything. And at the time, this may have just happened, but the Daily Show ran a cartoon of yours in connection with a joke or something.
No, I never saw that. Really?
And you told me, and you were like, yeah, I called them. They're on the phone. They're going to pay me for that.
What happened, and I'll tell you how that worked. It was during a lame duck part of the regimes that were, I think it was going from Obama to, no, I think it was earlier than that. It was wherever it was one of the exchanges where there were the Congress was referred to as the lame duck Congress because a lot of the representatives were going to be replaced, and so they decided to preface a joke with a duck coming out of a store instead of a frog. And why they didn't have to redo the whole name, the whole drawing, I don't know why. They have an art department there. I found that out. So they had the same people, exactly the same people, and the lady looking down. And instead of a frog, there was a duck, and the duck went quack, quack, quack. Well, I'm watching another channel from 11. It was on the Daily Show. I think the first call came in at 11:10, and the second one, and the third one, and the fourth one. And what I had done was at that time cover my ass by assigning the rights to the cartoon to National Lampoon. The New Yorker basically had the rights to this thing. And so Lynn Oberlander, who was their landlord and then a lawyer at the time, wrote a nice letter to the Daily Show, saying, and they know pretty much each other as far as rights are concerned. Dear so-and-so, how are the kids, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, by the way, we're suing you for $100,000 for using it. And they came back with $5,000. And I said, because we don't want to go through any lengthy lawsuits anyway. They came back with 5. And I said, well, go for 10 for us. And we finally settled for $7,500. Who needs all the lawsuits? But they again, it's good to have this thing, and it's good that and she, by the way, did not take a cut on this thing. Everything went to me, and that was one way. A lithograph, which we had, the black and white a lithograph. I think we took in $20,000 on that. Sale of the original was another 20, which Eranis give Cartoon Bank a cut, because dealing with an agent or a third party sort of legitimized their thing. Because if you're dealing with the cartoonist, or he's basically the schmuck artist, and they're going to be a lot tougher. So there's also, in owning this thing and dealing with it, and sometimes if it's worth your while, you have a third party in between. My business manager, one of the cartoonists, Sidney Harris, makes believe he has a business manager, so typing stuff out there, but as the business manager. So own it again.
That's the lesson today. Own it.
Own it.
Own it.
Yeah. If you can't own it,
steal it.
If you can't own it, take a course in cost accounting. Then maybe you'll own it.
Cost accounting. Those are the two lessons. Own it and cost accounting.
And is it more complicated or less, do you think? I'm finding it more challenging with the internet for the work not to be flying around and being used without permission.
My most viral cartoon was my blank cartoon that went all over the place after the Hebdo shootings, to the extent that I ended up on Ronan Farrow's show on MSNBC talking about it with somebody from The Onion who I didn't know. And then I thought, well, this is it. And I would guess I maybe saw $75 from it, even though it
Mhm.
showed up everywhere. Because it was just grabbed.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, one of the problems with the artists is it's getting harder and harder to protect your work. People seem to want to pay less and less. And well, Dad, did you tell them some of your favorite words like publicity and opportunity and exposure?
Everybody knows that. Exposure. Yeah. Exposure is a guy with a raincoat on 9th Avenue. No, I know nobody. I didn't get nobody. Nobody's giving me the exposure bit anymore. And but no, it's a tough way to make a living. But it has its kicks. And sometimes you come up with something and it glows. You really know what the hell. Whether you sell it or not is something else. But if it makes you feel good, you feel, wow, that's something else.
Sam, where else can we see your work online?
Hopefully just through cartoon collection.
Well, there's also a Facebook fan page.
Yeah, oh yeah. Which
I'm also 87 in my head, so I'm still trying to get my mind around stuff like Instagram, or as the French call it, Instagram.
No, on Instagram there's an account.
There's an account.
What's the name of it so people can find it?
Isn't it under S. Gross Cartoonist?
Oh.
I believe it's something that he did a lot of it, but that we were working on with Patrick Giles, who you know. My father's intern for the last 35 years.
Okay, great.
Someday he'll get a job.
Someday he'll get a job. Actually, he's the one who's sort of more of a so-and-so now, than we are. He's worn ties and things like that. Oh, Michael's holding his head. God, not a tie.
That's why he became a copywriter, so he wouldn't have to wear a tie.
But we should say goodnight. I have actually another function to go into in a short time. But I want to thank everyone. Sam, this is really great. Good to see you. Can't wait till I see you in person when I get into the city and we're both vaccinated.
Yeah, well, get your shots.
Okay.
Thank you, Sam. Merci, Michelle.
There she goes.
Sam, do you have Netflix?
Me? No.
Okay. Well, for you to exit, you just need to click the red button, Sam, and then you'll be exited.
There's one here that's recording.
No, the one that says leave
The
the
red
meeting,
button.
and we'll zoom again in the future.
Yeah, let me.
I'm really glad you got a chance to do this, so you know how to do it with Michelle. Now you can zoom with her.
Leave meeting. Okay. Give feedback. Oh, leave meeting.
He gave us plenty of feedback. Bye, Bob. Bye, Sam. Sam Gross, everybody.
So there's another episode of the Cartoon Pad. Thank you, cartoonists and cartoon lovers. Stay well, stay funny, stay 6 feet back.